Hey Village, welcome to Red Lipstick Conversations, the podcast where we take off the mask, speak from the soul, and redefine what it means to be free. I'm your host, Tasha Ray, and if this is your first time tuning in, let me tell you, this is more than a podcast. This is a space where truth is honored, where we get to be bold, unapologetic, and fully in our power, where we refuse to let the world define us, shrink us, or silence us. Today, the themes of this podcast are liberation, self-determination, and reclaiming pleasure. I want to kick off this episode with a quote. I am not afraid of my truth anymore, and I will not omit pieces of me to make you comfortable. And that quote comes from Alex L. And today's conversation, we're going to go deep. As Black History Month comes to a close, I want us to sit with some questions. What does it mean to be truly liberated? Not just in the political sense, but in our bodies, our choices, our desires. What does self-determination look like in a world that has tried to control and define us for centuries? How do we reclaim our narratives, not just the ones from history, but the ones about our pleasure? Because here's the truth. For generations, Black women have been told that our worth is tied to what we can give to our families, communities, and our partners. We have been the backbone, the nurturers, the ones that hold everything together. But what about us? What about our joy, our desires, our right to take up space? Fully, loudly, without permission. This episode is all about that, and it starts with something as small as red lipstick. Yes, red lipstick. And before I go any further, I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have taken time out of your day to join this live stream wherever you are watching from. Thank you so much for your support, and I'm so glad to have you a part of my village. So let's get into this red lipstick, because sometimes it is the smallest choices, the way we dress, the colors we wear, the way we move through the world, that hold the biggest truth about who we are and what we refuse to hide. So wherever you are right now, whether you are driving, sipping your afternoon coffee, or lounging in your favorite spot, get comfortable, because today we are reclaiming it all. So let's dive in to liberation through expression. The symbolization of red. Let's start with that. Red is passion. Red is fire. Red is defiance. But for Black women especially, red has always been more than a color. It has been a challenge, a statement, a rebellion. Think about it. How many of us grew up hearing things like, red lipstick is too grown. Red nails make you look fast. That red dress is doing too much. It wasn't just about fashion. It was about respectability politics, about making sure we didn't stand out too much, didn't draw too much attention, didn't dare embrace our own sensuality. Because history taught us that being seen as a Black woman was a targeted Black woman. But let me tell you something. We are no longer hiding. We are reclaiming. Red is a refusal to shrink. Red is a declaration that says, I will not tone myself down for your comfort. Now, let's look back at some interesting history. The Tegan laws and the politics of presentation. This conversation isn't new. Back in the 1700s, there were laws in Louisiana, and these Tegan laws required free black women to cover their hair. Why? Because white society feared our beauty and our presence and our influence. But did those women disappear? No. Did they bow their heads in shame? No. They took on head wraps and turned them into works of art, tying them high, adorning them with jewels, making them fashion instead of oppression. This is the power of a black woman. We don't disappear, we transform. We don't obey, we reinvent. And that's exactly what we're attempting to do today as we walk in the footsteps of our ancestors. Modern day respectability politics looks kind of like this. We see it when natural hair is called, quote unquote, unprofessional. We see it when people say a black woman's beauty is only acceptable if it is muted, controlled, and contained. We have having a vibrant sex life is often acceptable, but it's only acceptable if one is a married woman. We see it when black women are told to be sexy, but not too sexy, confident, but not too confident, outspoken, but not too outspoken. Enough already. It's time to stop apologizing for just existing and for choosing to be seen. Again, thank you for joining me wherever you are online. I appreciate your support. So let me ask you, what is one way you've been taught to shrink yourself? What is one bold act of self-expression you've taken recently? Can you think of any? Let's sit and think about that. And if you haven't taken that act yet, maybe today is the day to put on some red lipstick or some red shoes or that red dress that you keep in the corner of your closet for quote unquote special occasion. Well, I'm here to tell you that because you are breathing, that is a special occasion, because life is something that we often take for granted until something tragic happens. And so let's stop putting off joy and let's start living for the moment and living for our joy today. So let's talk about the right to pleasure. Let's get even deeper. Let's talk about something that black women have historically been denied, and that is our pleasure. Yes, I said it, because for centuries we have been told that our worth is tied to our ability to serve, that sex is something we give, not something that is for us, that desire is dangerous, that good girls don't talk about pleasure. But I need us to unlearn that and to do it right now. Again, the roots of this topic is written into our history as black women, just like our DNA. What I am referring to is the Jezebel and mammy stereotypes. Let's talk about the extremes black women have oftentimes been forced into. There is the archetype of Jezebel, who is the over or hyper-sexualized, objectified woman, but she is not desired and respected. Can we think of women in today's culture that get a bad rep for expressing all aspects of themselves? I know I can. Then there is the archetype mammy, who is supposed to be asexual, maternal, and existing only to take care of others. Where in that narrative do we get to just exist? Where do we get to explore, to desire, to want more? Pleasure is not a privilege. It is a right. What pleasure really means, it's not just about sex. It is about joy. It is about freedom. It is about choosing to be yourself without guilt. Pleasure is the way your skin feels when you step out of the shower wrapped in soft fabric, the laughter that bubbles up from deep within when you're with your favorite people, the way you feel when you dance, or if you're me, when you're eating something decadent, or when you let yourself fully enjoy the moment. We deserve that as Black women. So let this concept simmer for a moment. When was the last time you allowed yourself to experience pleasure just for you, not for anyone else? What's one small way you can invite more joy into your daily life? Because this is more than history. It's about right now. Let's look at what our ancestors have gone through in order to get us to where we are today. We honor the women before us, the ones who sacrificed, the ones who labored in silence, the ones who carried families, communities, entire generations on their backs without complaint, without rest, without permission to want more. We honor them because without them, we wouldn't exist today. But honoring them doesn't mean that we need to repeat their suffering, especially suffering in silence. Let's talk about the women who dared to own their pleasure. I'm talking about Josephine Baker, a woman who lived on her own terms, used her sensuality as a form of resistance, and demanded to be seen. Then there is Audre Lorde, who reminded us that erotic is power, that pleasure isn't physical, but spiritual, emotional, and deeply personal. Then there is Bessie Smith, who sang about love, about desire, about heartbreak without shame. There's this idea that has been passed along from generation to generation that no matter what it is, we have to always put on a brave face. And I reject that notion. Now, whether you are a female or if you are a male ally, again, I thank you for your time today, because this isn't about the battle of the sexes. What this conversation is about is hopefully to give insight into the Black female experience historically and to bring us up to today. For too long, Black women have inherited pain like it was a family heirloom. We have been conditioned to believe that struggle is our birthright, that to be strong, we must endure, that the very essence of our womanhood as Black women is entangled with how much we can survive. But what if I told you that real strength, real legacy isn't about how much we can burden or how much we can carry? It's about knowing when to set things down. Let's dig a little deeper and get into the burden of strength. We have, as Black women, often been glorified as the strong Black woman, and that narrative for so long has crippled us. And oftentimes we don't even realize how much it has cost us. Think about the Black women in your life, your mother, your grandmother, your auntie, your sister, your cousin, your wife, your significant other. How many of them got to rest? How many of them got to fully be without serving, without sacrificing, without putting others' needs first? I remember growing up watching the women around me move through life with an unshakable sense of duty. They didn't complain. They didn't ask for help. They just did. And as I grew up, I took on that same mantle. I thought that to be a strong Black woman was the only way to be a woman. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't aspire to walk in the footsteps of those that have gone before, but what I am saying is that the silence of strength has been a problem for generations. The women that came before us, they cooked, they worked, they raised children, they supported their partners, they showed up for everyone around them until they had nothing else left to give. And what happened when they were exhausted? When they were overwhelmed? When they needed support? When, well, there was no room for that because, again, a strong Black woman is supposed to endure and to do so with a smile. Wrong. This narrative is not a badge of honor like we have been taught to believe. I personally believe it's a whole trap. We have to ask ourselves at what cost and what can we start to do to break this cycle? We owe it to our ancestors something more than simply repeating their sacrifice. We owe them our joy, our pleasure, our freedom. We honor them not by following their path of exhaustion, but by forging a new path, one where we embrace ease, where we rest, and where we allow ourselves to desire. So I ask you, what sacrifices have the woman made? And how can you choose to do something different? What does taking a moment of rest look like? Stepping away from martyrdom to liberation. We have oftentimes been praised for being the backbone, for being the caretakers, for being the nurturers. And while this is a testament to our power, it is not the full story of who we are. We are also lovers. We are also creators. We are also dreamers, sensual beings, free spirits. And we are allowed to exist in that fullness. We do not have to be strong all the time, put together all the time. We do not have to feel like it is our job solely to hold the world and to hold everything together. We do not have to carry the burdens that are not ours to bear. Our ancestors fought for us to live, not just to survive. And if we don't claim that for ourselves, then who will do it? No one. I suggest that we stop struggling and doing so in silence. Yes, difficulty is something that we all will undoubtedly have to endure, but it is not a place where we should get comfortable. It is not a place where we should feel that that is just our plot and place in life because we are Black women. Liberation is about breaking free from external systems of oppression. It's about breaking free from the internal ones too. Because real freedom, real liberation, we deserve that. And it starts within. So let's talk about what that might look like. Liberation looks like saying no without guilt, prioritizing pleasure without apology. Let me say that again. Prioritizing pleasure without apology. Speaking our truth without fear. Refusing to shrink ourselves to make others comfortable. It looks like Black women taking up space. Liberation looks like reclaiming our time, our joy, our bodies, and our desires. It looks like choosing ourselves because for way too long, we have been conditioned to believe that we come last. Just taking a moment to savor a beverage. We are going to choose to, from today moving forward, to take the time that we need to give ourselves the love that we oftentimes give everyone else without hesitation. No more. Let's think about some affirmations for liberation. I want us to think about some positive ways that we can turn the tides. So, if you can, say it with me. I am worthy of joy. I am allowed to take up space. I do not have to earn rest. I deserve it. I release the burdens that do not belong to me. I honor my ancestors by embracing ease, not just struggle. I am enough, exactly as I am. Let those words sink in. Take a moment to breathe them in. Oftentimes, when we hear those affirmations, they don't even penetrate the armor that all of us have, even if we are unaware of it. Because, again, we have been so conditioned to be strong, to be silent, that when we hear a positive affirmation, it's almost as if we, in our mind, just say, well, that doesn't even apply to me, or we gift it to someone else. So that could be our children, it could be our family, it could be our communities, but instead give yourself the gift of joy and give yourself the gift of acceptance. Because this is what liberation sounds like. The revolution is personal, I would think. Black History Month may be ending, but hopefully our journey is just beginning. Our revolution, our reclamation, it is ongoing. Every time we choose ourselves, we honor those who came before us. Every time we embrace joy, we defy the systems that told us we're only here to serve. Every time we allow ourselves to want more, to desire, to fully live, we are rewriting our story and we are rewriting our history moving forward. So I want to leave you with a few quotes as we wrap up Black History Month for 2025. Zora Neale Hurston says, "Love makes your soul crawl out from its hidden place. Rosa Parks says, I have learned over the years that one's mind is made up. This diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Fannie Lou Hammer says, if you don't speak out, ain't nobody going to speak out for you. Then another quote from Harriet Tubman says, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember what you have within is your strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Just think about that. A woman who decided to free herself and countless others. She already knew how important pleasure was. I bet that's not something that you would connect quite easily with Harriet Tubman. Then, Madam C.J. Walker. I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it. Don't sit down and don't wait for opportunities to come. Get up and make them. So, as we continue to move forward through this year, are you going to join me in reclaiming your pleasure? Think about some ways that you can take up space. How will you honor those who have come before us without repeating their suffering? Because we are the next chapter in this story. We are the revolution in real time. And it is high time that we step into that power. Don't you think? So I would love to continue this conversation offline, and I would invite you to do so by joining me wherever you choose to online, and use the hashtag Red Lipstick Conversations so that we can connect with one another and continue to build community. Because at the end of the day, it isn't just about me. I have created this space so that we as Black women can have a safe space to be our whole selves and to have a place where we can examine the parts of us that we have had to keep quiet or that we have had to bury deep within. Because the only way that we can undo what has been done in previous generations is to begin with ourselves. Because liberation is not just something to talk about, it's something that we can hopefully choose to embody. So again, use the hashtag Red Lipstick Conversations to tell me what one way you are going to choose joy for yourself today. And or what is one way you are going to bring joy to someone else? Because we just can't help ourselves as Black women. A lot of the times we can't even think about our joy. We have to think about, or we get joy from serving others. And if that is how you find your joy, continue to do that. Continue to give, continue to share, continue to love, all of those things. But just make sure that you are taking a moment at least a couple times a week to do something that brings a smile to your face, something that adds a pep to your step, something that makes you want to jump out of the bed. Because just doing everything for everyone, I promise you, you will get to a point where you will be burnt out. We don't need that because the world needs us. And again, as we end Black History Month, I just want us to, again, think about the words of our ancestors and those that have gone before. And I want to circle back one more time to Harriet Tubman, who said, again, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and to change the world. Those are powerful words, and I absolutely can't think of a better way to end this episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay free, and stay you. Bye-bye.